Great crowd. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm really excited about this panel session. As you see, this is about the ecosystem, about the distribution ecosystem. And what's terrific about this is we literally have representatives from every member of the ecosystem here to speak about how they work together, what works well, maybe some things that could work better, right? How we all as an industry move forward and prosper. So ecosystem alignment using data and tech to reshape partnerships. We're going to actually talk about more than just data and tech, but that'll be kind of the essence of it. So we have about an hour here in this session, and we would welcome questions as well along the way to the panelists. Before we get started, I'm Mark Brading with ReSource Pro, so I'll be the moderator. I lead our strategic advisory group. And I will just ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, their roles, their companies, and then we can move into some discussion.
Well, thank you, Mark. Mike Ansay, Ansay and Associates. We're a family-owned agency celebrating our 80th year of business. Less than 3% of businesses make it to 80 years. I don't look 80, but I'm close. Started by my father. We have about $63 million in revenue, about 277 employees, and we're located in Port Washington, Wisconsin.
Maryellen Dolan. I'm the COO for Specialty Program Group, Specialty MGA Wholesaler, national platform with about 34 different entities that fall under that portfolio.
Sam Carson, formerly VP of Operations, now Managing Director of our Chicago and Wisconsin office at Burns & Wilcox.
Geoffrey Struggles, Cincinnati Insurance. We've been in business 75 years, so not quite up to Mike's timeline, but I lead agency innovation, so my role is kind of unique where I work with our agency partners on, agnostic of Cincinnati products and services and try to find operational efficiencies and ways to reduce friction and make doing business easier.
So we're going to talk about three big themes today. The first theme is I'd like to get everybody's perspective here on how the whole distribution landscape is evolving, because it's pretty dynamic, lots of really interesting things going on as carriers and MGAs. How do we reach our markets, our preferred segments? What's our path to the customer? Agencies are doing it in the opposite direction. How do we reach our underwriting partners and find our markets? So lots of dynamic activity going on in terms of partnering, in terms of the way companies work together, in terms of how they use data and technology. But I guess for each of you, and maybe Jeff, we'll start down at your end, just a big picture, what do you see as the big themes, the big changes in the whole distribution landscape?
When you framed this to me, you said the past 5 years, so I kind of put together a list of things that have kind of materialized. So if you want me to double click into any of these, I'm happy to, but get ready. 2021, we started with a pandemic and, dealing with the pandemic and all the, collateral off of that, then that led to like a rapid digital adoption across, the agency force, across carriers, everything, consumers, everyone wanting things digital. And then, we saw a rapid acceleration of the Insurtech market in general and just, finding the new products that were coming to market and trying to keep up with that, which is kind of where my role was actually born. And then, through that, we also saw an impending talent, quote unquote, crisis where we were hearing people that were not able to retain staff and then losing staff and trying to bring on new people and new folks into the industry was always, a challenge and omnipresent. And then, just nationally, we see a lot of, mergers and acquisitions occurring, across the agency force in general too. So that's created some friction, for us as carriers and handling that and keeping up with the pace of that. And then obviously just, socially, there's inflation. We've seen the consumer price index to soar with things during the pandemic. And then, in the legal world, we see social inflation and legal system abuse and third-party litigation funding that's created a lot of, complexities in the casualty space. And then 2022 or whatever it was, ChatGPT hit the mainstream. So that kind of exploded just AI in general for everybody in the world. And then obviously there's just weather volatility in general. We've seen some pretty significant storms, and then more impactful for us on the carrier side, there's the concept of non-convective storms and non-major things, and we've seen a lot of losses that we've had to deal with on that side of things. And then, on the heels of that, now we're entering a softer market. So there's been just a lot of volatility over the past few years, and a lot of change, and a lot of kind of coalescing around that. But I think that's what we're kind of seeing.
Is that all?
You asked for us, so I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's what we see.
Sam, from your perspective.
I'm not gonna be as long-winded as you.
Okay.
That's just not my personality, but that's okay. When I look at the market and the landscape over the last, you said 5 years, 10 years, I think we've, in the wholesale space, definitely been striving to be more tech forward. And I know on the carrier side, especially on your side, you have a lot of portals that you have retailers go through. I think on the wholesale side, we're trying to do the same thing, make the user experience for our retailers as seamless as possible. And that has been an ever-changing dynamic over the last probably 5 years, going from, I think, probably way before my time, but like the email or the mailing of paper documents to now emails, and now what's the next step after that? So I think it's looking at how we can digitize all those submissions coming in and change that landscape.
Okay, from our perspective, I think like the growth of M&A and acquisitions and all the consolidations has been a big one. The talent challenge, as we're consolidating more and acquiring more, being able to keep pace with the changes that we need from a service and implementation standpoint. And then technology, being able to be a better partner from automation, integrations with whether it be your retail partner or, your carrier partner is what I've seen in the last, 5 to 10 years.
Mike, I decided to leave you for last because, you're the last mile. You're where the rubber meets the road. So from an agency perspective, what have you seen?
Appreciate the confidence. Thank you. No, I mean, in all of our business models, the migration of talent has been a really huge challenge for us over the last couple of years. Strategically, when you have the amount of people retiring you and the brain drain that you're getting, you have to have a real forward-looking attitude towards what you're doing. So from our end, we work very hard at training, soft skills, bringing the next generation in, and then we have a whole mentorship program and a guidance program where what we do is we call our perpetuation program, where we bring people in from different parts of our company and we work through them with senior management, because that amount of information that we're losing is so critical for the success of the customer. We're in a customer business, no customer, no job. It's about the customer. And as a part of that, as you talk about the tech things and different things, our organization is spending more money than ever before on training. We set up all these training programs because we're reskilling our people. Tech is definitely here. It's going to be a part of your life. It's going to change how we do business, but it's not going to change the relationship part of the business. That will not change. I always talk about 1-800-GOOD-LUCK. I mean, you have experienced it yourself when you get into a situation, nobody's there to help you. And that's the relationship part of who we are and what we were. We call it relationships that work. So that's kind of where we're at in today's world.
So let's look forward a little bit. And Sam, I'm going to ask you first, as you think about the wholesaler role, how have you seen that evolving? What do you see next? Where's the wholesale world going?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think expertise and showing our expertise in the industry is a key factor in making our clients' user experience the best that it could be. And I know from a Mike standpoint, like dealing with a lot of the admitted carriers in the world, their experience is a lot different dealing with them compared to wholesale. So how can we make that experience as seamless as possible for them on a long-term stretch, but then also highlighting our expertise? Like, I think when you're in the space and there's a lot of, like Mike said, there's a lot of talent that has left the industry from a retirement standpoint. How do we make sure we backfill that with the expertise that's needed to play in the wholesale space?
So, Maryellen, I know at SPG you're an MGA and wholesaler, but I'm going to ask you to comment on the MGA space because it's just exploded in the last decade. You've been part of that equation as well. But why do you think MGAs have enjoyed so much success? What's the model there that's been working?
I think the speed to market and specialization that we can bring, like when you think about the talent challenges, if we can bring the expertise to be a better partner for our carriers, I think that has been a winning answer. And then I think the other part of it is, being able just to move fast. I mean, everything is changing so rapidly, and being able to be there and move fast and be a good partner in that way.
And Mike, just before the session, we were talking about how you've been able to enjoy this extended hard market. It's been kind of boom times, right, for the agency world, and things are different right now, right?
Well, the last 3, 4 years, I was a rock star for my board. They just couldn't believe how I created this revenue stream. But to your point, it's an evolving and changing market. So you can get into soft markets, hard markets, all of that. Certainly the pricing situation today is soft. I think to your point, the key relationships we had is really what's going to make a difference with the MGA world. We'll be able to access information and that. But from our perspective in the market, we're retraining our people. Just imagine this. For people that are seasoned, you're able to articulate market changes. You go, if depending upon your maturity, you can go back and forth in the 80s, 90s, and all that. I'm dealing with people where they're 20 some years old. Well, there's no concept of what we're going through. So what happens is we're at risk with our customers because the customers want, as you well know, what's occurred to the customer, we put them in all bad places because of inflation. I mean, we're dealing with families that couldn't afford their insurance anymore because of the prices of stuff. These people are people that are in need. So how do I take a 25-year-old or 26 or 20? It's never experienced it. So we're retraining them all to have more empathy, listen more, bring more value to the relationship, because that way at least if people know you care, they're willing to work with you. But if you don't care, the consumer's gone. So that's what we're really doing in concern to the market change, and then having great partners, MGAs and other carriers that work with you, because that's the critical element. We're in the market situation where we create markets. We're market makers. Agents are market makers, and they take the market. We give it to them for taking the risk on, and that's why we're really tight with the relationship side as they are with us. But it's really critical. It's interesting to say the least.
And Jeff, speaking about relationships, Cincinnati's been known as having deep independent agent relationships, right?
Yeah.
So as the market evolves, what does that mean for Cincinnati? What does that mean for carriers in general, do you think, the way the market is evolving?
I mean, Cincinnati's fairly unique with our field model, even across sales and claims and whatnot. So, ironically, it's actually we're doubling down on that. Where we're using the people that we have in the field. That we have our people in the offices with the mutual policyholders and insureds. So, we feel well positioned for that. But at the same time, we also recognize that we need to be more transparent to our agents about why pricing is the way it is and what, and be communicative and flexible on those things. And, to your point, Mike, have those conversations and figure out the solutions for those people in there. And then to your point, also, we pride ourselves on listening to our agents, and we acknowledge that we're not the most comprehensive necessarily with every market that we serve, but we listen and we try to build products around that. So we take that feedback loop and try to enter new areas that we have, and we've now expanded ourselves so that we have specialty line of business where we're continuing to grow. We have now a Lloyd's syndicate where we're trying to get more products into the Lloyd's market for our agents. But that's just kind of how we want to get more or less operationally lean internally too, and make sure our expense ratios are in line, and then just continue to work with our agents.
So thus far, I've asked each of the four of you to speak about the market from your perspective, your place in the marketplace. But now let's turn, the second area I want to cover is partnership strategy. So how do you all work with each other? And Mike, I'm going to turn to you first and just ask, how do you determine who to partner with in terms of carriers or MGAs or wholesalers? Comparative rate is other other players in the market that
Yeah.
you work with?
So what we have is we have a program called Peak, and we identify our key partners from the carrier side. And that's about people, expertise, alignment, and key metrics. Within that, we generally run about 80% of our revenue through these relationships. We meet regularly with the carriers. We work with their underwriting staff. We have meetings with them, and then we share that within our organization. These key relationships are alignment on the ability to write the business we write. We're a middle market. We're a kitchen table agency. We're not on the higher end of the larger accounts. We're right in the middle, and those are purely relationship side driven with the underwriting and economics. On the MGA side, and certainly you can relate to this, we went through a very difficult time 2 years ago when you were critical for our customers. I mean, I had a customer that owned a camp in a protection class 9, and they had a beautiful church and all the campgrounds. We couldn't get them property insurance for 6 months because the market had changed. So those relationships up here, including Cincinnati as a part of it, are critical for the success of the customer. Just imagine you're talking to a customer who had the church burned down 5 years ago, and we can't get them insurance. Those are hard conversations, but the fact of the matter was the market was that tough. We couldn't, and finally we got a place, and guess what's happened? The market change came back, and we reduced this cost by 70%. So it's an interesting world to try to communicate that to a consumer and a customer. How does this work? Why does this happen? But that's how we build partnerships. It's really critical to have solid partnerships. And I would say long term, these partnerships are going to get into gain sharing. This is a concept that doesn't exist in our industry, where we sit in a room with a carrier and we bring our tech stacks together and we figure out, how do we reduce your redundancy and costs, and how do you do mine, and how can that become better for the consumer and incentivizing me to sell? Just those are things I think you'll see changing.
Maryellen, partnerships have got to be a real challenge for you, right? With, as you said, 34 different entities that are part of your ecosystem, all specialized. You've got to have a pretty extensive ecosystem of partners across the board, tech partners as well as wholesalers, carriers, retailers. So how do you manage that whole process?
I don't sleep at night.
Yeah.
No, I think what we try and focus on is, one is like for our retail partner, and in some cases we still use outside wholesale. You have to be able to bring value, and the same thing with our technology partners. Having these true partnerships where they're strategic, and you look at like who's going to be the best partner to build and to grow with you. I think that's been very important for us as we start to standardize and consolidate without breaking something that worked very well when an agency was independent. We have to have the right partners that can be nimble with us, as we have to be nimble with whoever we're interacting with, whether it be a carrier, a retailer, or a wholesaler.
And Sam, you obviously have partners upstream and downstream. What do you think makes the best partners, in your opinion?
That's a very good question. From an upstream carrier standpoint, I think the ones that are tech forward are usually easy to work with, because I think as on the wholesale side, we're trying to expand our tech deck. So as long as we can partner with somebody that also has those capabilities, it works out really well. On the retailer side, with M&A going on the retail side, it's always we always need to be in front of all of our carriers or all of our retailers and make sure we're giving them the service that they need. But I think the best ones are the ones that have sustainable growth, and can feed us the business for the most part.
And Jeff, as a carrier, what do you do to bring value? How do you bring more value to your distribution partners, right? How do you build those relationships and enhance those relationships over time?
For those that are not aware, we're unique in the sense that we're a $10 billion company, but we distribute that exclusively through independent agents. We only have about 2,500 in our entire agency force, so we expect a lot of our agencies, but also we like to think that we give them some of the best, things out there as far as profit sharing and commission and whatnot. But, to Mark's question, you know, I think we pride ourselves on being present and listening, like I kind of mentioned before. Like we are willing to meet with our agents however they want to be met, if that's in the office or that's on Teams or Zoom or whatever that looks like. Again, we take the feedback on like what products they want. We also pride ourselves on some of our, courses that we offer, as far as continuing ed credits and like L&D courses that we deliver to them. And I've heard stories, and this is not my domain, but like even other people will bring their talent to our schools for the kind of coursework that we offer out there. And then, we also are mindful to be present in a lot of the aggregators, or like we have relationships with agencies that are in Keystone or Great Big Thinkers, or we have a strategic partnership in something called Broker Tech Ventures, which is is focused on innovation and transforming the industry. And then we also participate in the Risk Stream Collaborative. So we're always trying to be present and forward thinking about how we can be impactful and deliver to Mike's point of like how we can ultimately serve the consumer on what they kind of need in the market.
So you're saying it's not all about commission?
No, it's not. It's definitely not.
I can attest that it's not.
Yeah, but I would just add, like we've had things where we've had a 5-location agency say we want to do this custom integration, for Salesforce, and we've done that. But we've also met, with USIs of the world, and and the hubs that say they want to do something else, and so we are flexible and we want to, we take that feedback. And I would say our executive team is very approachable, and they actually, are listen and can, hear things, and we try to deliver on them as much as we can.
Maybe you could just comment for a moment about your service center, because there are other carriers that certainly have those kind of service centers, but I think yours is kind of unique.
Yeah, it's in full transparency, it's very unique in the sense that like we have a dedicated person assigned to your agency. So while you are handing the operations and servicing of that account over to us, it's not like other carriers where it's a round robin of people that might be there. We are an extension of your agency. So while we take the commission, like you have a dedicated person that services your clients. And so, that's created some challenges as we tried to scale that, but we've kind of figured that out over time, and we're at a good place where we feel confident that we can be there. And now our care center services all lines of business. It's not just personal lines, commercial lines, it does specialty. They even do life and things of that nature. So we're growing pretty aggressively in that space as well.
So the third area that I want to cover is data and tech. Let's talk about how different parts of the ecosystem leverage data and tech. And my first question is not going to be about AI. Trust me, we will get there. But at ReSource Pro, we have this concept of digital readiness, and you've heard a lot about it, right? We really believe that building the strong foundation first, understanding how to optimize your processes and how to get your data in order and make sure you have modern systems, a whole tech stack that really can accommodate the more advanced technologies in AI. So our view is that this is something that is as important or just as important as moving into some of these new spaces, and you got to work on those in parallel. But I'd like to get the opinions of our 4 members up here. What do you think about this idea of digital readiness and what it means for you and your part of the ecosystem? Mike, I know you have a really strong opinion on it. Well, I know all 4 of you have really strong opinions, but start with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. So, as a family-owned business and with the merger and acquisitions going on, I thought the biggest risk we had would be digital ready. That if our organization couldn't adapt and change to this next wave of opportunity. So I went to school at Columbia. I studied under David Rogers in 2017. That's when we started our journey to be digital ready. And that started to get my people aligned, change management, get them all on the same platform and all that stuff. And I think one of the biggest challenges is to get your data clean. The problem you get with all of these things, unless you have strong processes, unless you have a change management mindset, unless you have data that's really good and your workflows figured out, it becomes very problematic for you to implement change or to move it. So we have a thing called Ansay University where we bring people in to speak to our people. I always have an adage, it's not what my dad said, it's the neighbor's dad. If I tell people I want to do something, they won't do it. But if I have somebody else come in and do it, it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. So we bring outside speakers, we work it, and we have it on a regular basis. And this is where the training program is. So we're all into AI training. We have a program on it's uniform. So we're getting digital ready. And it's a journey. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And it's a little bit, and then a lot of it. If you look at Amazon, when they came out with the ability to read books on their platform piece, and you look at where they now figure out how many transactions they're doing in a day, it'll just blow your mind. But that's over time. It didn't happen. And the other thing, as we all know, our assets are worth more if we're digitized. When you look at the balance sheet of an Amazon and the valuation they have compared to a Kroger or somebody else, it's completely different because digitization is going to create value. So we see that as our journey.
So, I mean, we've been really focused on being digital ready, and consolidations is a big piece of that for us. 4 or 5 years ago, we were running on probably about 60 different platforms with data all over the place, which makes it almost impossible to do anything at scale and optimized. So really the last few years has been trying to get everything on fewer systems and coming up with data standards in an industry where there isn't a lot of standards in E&S. So organizing that data and making that a discipline and a best practice, and then instilling that on the front end of our workflow and process where there needs to be some inputs, whether it's through third-party data integrations or user inputs, to make sure that we're just improving our data along the way and really staying on top of that.
So Sam, what does this notion of digital readiness mean for a wholesaler?
From a wholesaler standpoint, I think we look at having data, and data is king, I think, in our space. We get it from the retailer, we get it from the carrier, and being able to capture it from both sides and utilize that to leverage the marketplace a little bit. So it's just trying to capture that data in the best way possible. A lot of times it's on paper documents, but getting it into our systems is key. It's just figuring out the most efficient and the easiest way to ingest that information into our systems.
And Jeff, before this session, we just had an hour-long session where we talked about data.
Yeah.
So I know it's near and dear to your heart as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously hairy to get that there, and we're not like unique in the sense that we had silos, and our systems historically did not always talk to each other the most elegantly, and so we've put a foundation, data fabric layer in place to have at least some common language. And it's, to Mike's point, it's not. It is definitely a journey. It is not a light switch. I like to say it's a dimmer switch, and we're continuing to iterate and enhance off of that thing. And then, to Sam's point, then it creates more and more opportunities off of that as you enrich that data, and then it unlocks so many more capabilities. But from that, what we're trying to do as an organization is, for everybody, like Mike, that wants to send us all this great business, right now we have so many entry points for that it can be confusing, that you're not sure as an agent if it's a middle market account or a small business account, or if it's going to go to E&S. And we're trying to create a single funnel where it just comes into one place, and you could send it to your field rep, or you could send it directly to us, whatever that looks like. So then we can use AI on the back end to kind of triage that, find the right place, and get it to the right people, so that then it's just frictionless as much as possible. So we have efforts underway to get to that state. It's definitely going to be a multi-year project to get to that utopia, but that's something we believe, because to Mike's point and Sam's point and everybody's point, really speed is kind of king now in the market. And so if we can turn around something, even if it's a declination quicker, so that our agents can then say, okay, now we need to go to the wholesale market directly, to a different wholesaler, fine. But that's kind of where we want to be, is, be able to respond really quickly. And then on top of that, admittedly, we are looking even at like portfolio management on ourselves, to have data surface to then see where we're maybe oversaturated or undersaturated, or where we want to write more business, and have that served up to our underwriting and our sales teams more effectively. So that's another really exciting opportunity that we're looking to explore as well.
Mike, let's talk about the role of the agency management system. So, interested in your perspective, do you see it as necessary evil? We got to have the AMS to transact business and manage our agency, or do you think it can actually be used as an engine of growth and innovation?
Well, not all agency management systems are alike, right? So there's a perspective out there. The majority of the marketplace is captured by two, right? Epic Applied and Vertafore. They control the marketplace. When you look at it, they're closed systems, right? They operate within their system. You then get the availability of what they give you. What most independent agents, we're entrepreneurs, so we're problem solvers. We start to look outside the system to find different solutions to make what we do easier and faster. Where I think it can go, and I think there's an opportunity, is an open system. An open system that you can plug into with your choice of what AI you want to get better efficiencies, more relevant and quicker responses to the marketplace. Those things are starting to evolve. And a lot of people haven't tackled the management system because it's complex. There's a couple out there where we're engaged with one of them right now with Resource's help, Resource Pro's help to really drive that innovation. Because when you look at it, if you can get an organization that allows you to plug into it, it allows you to scale different, allows you to deal with problems different, allows you to react to the market better. Not that the other ones aren't any good. They're very good. They're very successful organizations, but they're closed systems. And that's my perception of what I see and what we think can make a difference with the systems.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the partnership discussion, I think we're in a world where there's going to be more and more dynamic partnerships. That's
Right.
what's helping to be successful.
Right. And Resource Pro is one of those partners.
So, Sam, really interesting question. I think when I think about the distribution ecosystem and data, is who owns the data? Who has rights to the data, right? Especially as you sit in your role. What do you think about that?
I think that's a highly controversial question. um, I think every cog in the distribution channel owns their own data and what they can do with that data. If a retailer has their data on their insured, they send it to us as a wholesaler. We now have ownership of that data and vice versa. So, I mean, if you look at how the distribution train goes up and back down, I think everybody has the data. It's just whether they're able to capture it. So if you're ingesting the data, it's yours. It's the best way I can put it. It's a high, I guess. I don't know if you guys think differently.
In Europe and other countries, they have a whole model of who owns the data. It is politically driven that you own your data. In our society, it's driven by your contract. And for a lot of us, if you don't study your contract, you might realize you don't own your data. And so as you look at these things, it's really the most important, not the most important, one of the most important assets you have in your company is your data. And so I'd recommend anybody who's in the business world of the independent agent, study your contracts. Because you might think you have ownership of it, but when in fact, in certain relationships, they're taking your data and using it, and you don't even know it. And so that's the transparency and the clarity that trust comes from, but it's all contractual based. And so study your contracts.
Well, in that space, I would say we're all paying for data, and it's sometimes duplicative, triplicative. And so if we could get to a state where there is a single source of truth, whatever that looks like, that would be, nirvana in this world. But, right now the vendors love us because we're all paying them. It's just, it's not ideal, and I don't know what the solution is, but it's very costly for all of our organizations. And so someone smarter than me will hopefully figure that out.
As a matter of fact, sometimes in your organizations, different parts of your organizations are paying for the same data.
Exactly.
2 or 3 or 4 things.
And then to your point, Mike, it's the contracts too. Like,
Yeah.
we can't give it out or vice versa, so it gets really unwieldy.
Let's just stay on the theme of data for a second. So, Jeff, from an analytics standpoint, how do you leverage the data that you have, for the benefit of the relationships you have with your distribution partners?
Great question. I mean, admittedly, it's a bit challenging for us because we like to consider ourselves a generalist agent or a carrier, excuse me. But, we'll we'll say we'll write the right account for the right agent, with the relationships that Mike's mentioned. But at the same time, we try to use the data now. We have essentially an internal algorithm that will help us do the right pricing. It gets, again, more convoluted because our salespeople write the new business with the agency, and then come renewal time, our commercial lines underwriting team might not necessarily agree with everything, out there. So now we've kind of homogenized around having the right data that we all can look at together and see if this is priced right, or we need the different terms and conditions on it, and so on and so forth. And so that's one of the things we do. As a concrete example, we built some roof models, for example, and so now we've got to a place where we can have that explainability factor, so we can say, well, we want to do this, and then show the agent if needed, like, here's why you put it as X, but it's really Y. And so we're getting to a place where we can use that data to be, again, more transparent, and not just like a black box of why we're, putting whatever terms or rate on the accounts.
So data is one part of this equation. Maryellen, I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about, how do you really optimize your business at the enterprise level, not just data, but moving to common platforms, process optimization. You've spent a lot of time, I think, in this space, so maybe you can give us a perspective on the challenges of doing that, but also the opportunities.
Yeah, I think the way we focused on it, or we still do, is really to try to get us to as common as possible. So there's always, especially in the specialty marketplace, there's going to be nuances, but where we can, share best practices and sort of what's in it for you with all of our different partners across the portfolio that we're managing, and then organizing it in a way that we're able to optimize incrementally. And then when we build something, it's everyone gets the opportunity to take advantage of it, versus you're building, say, an optimization project for just like one particular line of business or one particular portfolio partner. So we try and look at it more holistically and end to end. And, sometimes it takes a little longer, but, it's a never ending journey though.
And I imagine you get pushback from individual business unit owners that don't want to go to that common platform, right? How do you manage that?
You know, I spent a lot of time trying to socialize, the benefits, like, really understanding like their pain points and where you can lean in and, maybe upsell in those, maybe there's two or three areas that you hear them complain about a lot. Hopefully the platform, you're selecting solves for that, but we try and do that. But it's a constant conversation. I think spending a lot of time with them so that there's the trust. They have trust in you that you're going to do the right thing for them and not, destroy their business or destroy a process. It's hard because everybody, especially when you do a lot of acquisitions, everyone wants to be, their own, snowflake. And trying to get everybody on the same page and thinking collectively. And it is just a lot of collaboration. So that's sort of the approach that we've had, and it's something you have to work at. You have to constantly stay at it and listen, and hopefully incrementally you move them a little closer, and those that sometimes are on the same page might get pushed down to the bottom of the list, and we'll move forward with the next one and then circle back with them a little later.
All right, so all of us are now building this foundation of strong process, data, modern systems, right? Let's talk about AI. So, as you think about the role of AI in your company, and especially uh, what it means in terms of the way you interact with other partners in the distribution system. Jeff, let's start down at your end and kind of move this way.
Sure. So like I mentioned, we're working on our new business intake, streamlining that whole process as end to end and making it cleaner, more efficient for everybody. So that's, a huge priority for us. With that, we also have, basically, we're trying to enhance our contact centers. Right now we have a lot of contact centers out there, and it would be pretty ugly if I shared some of the horror stories that I hear about how calls get bounced around internally, and it's just a very poor customer experience. And so we're trying to look at agentic AI that can triage and get the sentiment and like get people to the right, people internally on our side so that there's not this ping pong, and terrible customer experience and get them answers quickly. Um, we're using AI on our back end within our underwriting units so that we can have consistency about how we look at accounts and how our eligibility guidelines, procedures, and then also consistent messages back out to our agency partners on how, we handle certain types of accounts. And then on the claims side, we're looking at how we can have consistent processes there because, with our field model, not every claims adjuster handles things exactly the same. So we want to drive that consistency on that side. So again, the insured going through that, one of the worst moments has great experiences they can have with that there. And then, as my colleague Tyler said last week to me, is like we would just really want to get the right information to the right people at the right time, which I think is a really nice, succinct way to paraphrase, what we think AI can deliver for us.
Yeah, from an AI standpoint, I think it can help us from a service standpoint long term, in helping our speed to underwriting, and helping our decision making, giving us basically almost a risk score on every submission that we get to figure out what the bindability is, what the quotability is on a certain type of risk. And I think it starts with the data intake. As long as we have that data intake of like historically what's happened, we could leverage AI to help from a speed of service standpoint.
And then from a MGA perspective, I mean, we're focused on the submission intake and enhancing the submission. So from an underwriting perspective, they're able to get to a quote and turn things around much quicker. Because speed is going to be the thing that wins, and the better we can get at that. Also, taking some of the like inputs off of our retailer, where send you this supplemental, send you that, being able to pre-fill and optimize the data and give them something just to reflect on, and then hopefully that again, you're showing your value. So that's sort of how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, AI. I mean, it's a topic of discussion. It's been on steroids the last couple years, and first it was the internet, and everybody kind of went down that road, and then there was a crash. AI is not going to crash. So we look at it as trying to find where we can apply it in the simplest fashion to get the opportunity for the customer experience and our internal customers and that to move. So we're slowly taking it one piece at a time. Other areas, like you take claims activity, we have a new AI product, Cumin, that effectively will take a claim and diagnostic it, take the policy, and it'll come out with a direction, have a communication. So our claims gentleman used to spend hours, he's doing it in about 2 minutes. So that elevates his ability to work with the customer and the consumer and our carriers to have conversations. And what it also does is you take the loss information and it'll give you a loss control way to mitigate the loss issues that are in the customer. So think about that as a value add. I go to a customer, a large commercial customer, and we have this product in-house. They're like, this, I got to do business with you. So you look at it in a lot of different ways, but having that ability to react to a market competitively compared to my other competitors really adds the value to who we are because we're thinking different. And then the final thing we're looking at too is running AI reports on transportation. So just think about it. If we've had other like conversations, but we do an AI report to a transportation, pulls all the data together, and we present it to the CEO of the company. He can't assemble that data and information, no matter how much he reads. So all of a sudden now they want to see us because we're getting more and more integrated into their business model for their success. So it's, wish was 20 years younger. It's going to be pretty darn exciting where this is all going to go.
So I have an open question for the panel. How would you like to see your partners in the distribution space use AI? Anybody can answer this, right? What do you wish that they would do to make your business and make your relationship better?
Yeah, if I'm okay with it, I think we're at a crossing place. I mean, they have certain recipes in your companies that provides you the next lift of what you're trying to get, faster to market, better internal opportunities, lower costs, and all that. And as I said before, if we can get together in a room, our best partners, and figure out how to do gain sharing, if I'm able to drive this, the thing that AI is going to do is make us more profitable for our carriers. We're already proving that with what we do on our contingency modeling. But the collaboration of gain sharing, where we can drive 20% more expense savings to you, how can you apply that to a lower pricing strategy to the customer consumer? And by the way, don't forget your agent to pay him more.
Well, I'll build on that. I think I was sharing with some others this week that on the carrier side, at least, it's a unique moment in time where you all as agents can be further ahead of us with AI. Like, we are bound by the NIC bulletin and all what Colorado is doing from a regulatory compliance perspective. And so we have all these parameters that we have to adhere to because we can't risk underwriting bias, pricing bias, things of that nature. So in that point, Mike, I would almost ask for just a little bit of patience from us while we get our ducks in a row. And hopefully, I'd be pretty confident that your day is coming too, where you're going to have some, more regulatory, oversight on that from your side. But for right now, it's just this unique moment where, we want to be there, but we can't quite
Jeff,
be
my
there.
father always said, be patient or become a patient.
Well, you take the E&O risk then, okay?
Well, I'm a patient.
All right, let's close out with a couple of more questions. So let's think about the next few years. What do you think some of the industry's most transformative capabilities are going to be, especially those that would drive deeper relationships in the distribution space amongst your partners? Think out maybe 3 to 5 years. Start down to your end again, Jeff.
Again, this is more in the AI realm, and again, it won't necessarily drive deeper it'll drive deeper relationships in the sense that we will be able to be more partners and have that relationship where agentic AI is going to streamline so much of the quoting process, in my opinion, because now you don't have to use comparative raters anymore. In my opinion, you'll be able to have an AI agent go into our portals and do a lot of the quoting. I've already seen that technology. It's right there. Now you're going to have voice AI agents that will service things from an omni-channel perspective and things of that nature. So I see a lot of opportunity there so that we can be true more risk advisors and better partners in that space. This is not in my domain, so this is my personal opinion, not necessarily one of Cincinnati's, but like, I see a lot of parametric products coming to the market. So Maryellen, I'd be curious for your perspective on this, but it could be a great supplement to coverage where there's gaps right now. So I see a lot of great startups in that space and what they're offering and bringing to the market there. And then finally, to Mike's point about the incumbent management systems, I see a lot of inertia behind organizations wanting to move away from those and using more open-ended architecture systems, to your point, Mike, about how they can bring in whatever components or services they want to do that, rather than be told, no, you have to go through all these hoops and whatnot and pay this extra fee that the incumbents do. So I see a lot of things going on in those areas.
Yeah, I would say we talked a lot about speed of service on the wholesale side, and just being able to integrate with our carrier partners and our retail partners. So figuring out a way from upstream and downstream to integrate seamlessly within all of our ecosystems and our platforms. I know you talked about everybody's trying to move away from those major two, but I think if we are able to, it's as long as a wholesaler we're able to integrate with them long term, that it's key. And then also our key carrier partners are the ones that are going to be able to integrate with our internal systems as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, like data and focusing on data, but having more like transparency with all of your partners, whether it be your retailer, your carrier, being able to push data back and forth, like whether it be a submission coming in, and if from a wholesaler or MGA that we have to go out to market, knowing exactly where it is. And the same thing when you think about your carriers is bordereaux and all the things that we spend so much time, like massaging the data, being able to, in real time, to be sharing data across all the different partnerships, I think will be a game changer.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. So when you think about the consumer and the customer today, and you're all a part of that world, Take a look at how you buy your groceries. Take a look at how you buy your airplane ticket. Look at how everything's done on your phone. It's in real time, right? I mean, that's the expectation of not all consumers, but a large percentage of them. The independent agency system's not close, all right? That's the opportunity. That's not a problem, that's an opportunity. And then if you listen to the other panel members here, they're all working on the same thing, speed to market, right? Because it's proven if I can get it to you in 9 seconds, I'm going to have a higher close ratio. And it wouldn't have to necessarily be all about price.
Right.
So when you start looking at the challenges and the opportunities, it's then the alignment of AI with your partner people, and it's your team and your ability to get them trained to skill properly, and then to continue. Now, here's the important thing: it's not replacing the human. Just everybody goes through this whole thing. Now, what's going to do is it's going to augment the human being in a way that it'll make it even more powerful. We are a very reactionary business. You call up with a claim, we react. Nobody calls you ahead of time and says, hey, we see you have a son going to be 15. Do you know that your car insurance is going to go up by $500? No, you get it, and you get on the phone and you kind of explain to us how that's not very kind or upsetting to you. This is where the change of how we provide customer service is going to go. We're going to be proactive in a world that we never were. We weren't proactive. And
Not right.
so, I mean, that's kind of exciting.
And being able to have the time to focus on like the relationship versus pushing paper and checking boxes. I think that's where all this extra capacity we're going to get is really going to help, and then it's all going to be competing against who has the better customer experience.
It's going to flip, and you guys will be like, wow, my agent's calling me about my car policy.
What does he want?
There's something wrong here.
So let's close out with what I like to call a lightning round. So this is kind of like the presidential debates where each candidate gets 90 seconds to recap their best arguments and maybe say some things they wanted to say but didn't get a chance to. So Mike, we'll start with you and go down the other direction.
I'd rather be at the end. That's how I can win. If I'm being political, I got to win. No. So first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here at ReSource Pro. Thank you for that. And thanks for serving with the panel members. The recap of what it is and where we're going for an independent agency. First of all, the independent agency system is going to grow. And in fact, you'll find that there's more new agencies starting today than ever before because of venture capital and the change in the marketplace. People want to be in this industry. It's the best industry that I know of. It is the sort of industry, though, that you have to stay relevant. Relevant means you self-educate. That means you're engaged in what you do and you learn and you listen to others. My best friend, Frankie Valentino from the Bronx, said, 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly. So when you look at things, it's really the ability to listen, to evolve and change with change management and to move, because it's moving, not to the pace. The funny part with this is all about a pace strategy, but you got to be smart about it because it's slow and steady wins the race, slow and steady. So
Yeah, I think, as I was saying earlier, like data, transparency, and speed, are going to continue to be the drivers, and making it an easier experience for everybody that you work with.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this question for a while this weekend. I have 2 young kids. We were watching Meet the Robinsons. I don't know if you've seen that movie. And I think it's a quote by Walt Disney. I think that's prominent in that movie. It's keep moving forward. And I think as an industry, we just have to keep moving forward. And I think it's pretty relevant today from that movie. Is like it's very tech driven, and like the guy keeps failing and failing and failing. And I think in the industry with AI coming aboard, like we're gonna fail, but like we just have to keep moving forward.
For me, we've obviously heard a lot about AI this past couple of days, and operational readiness for all that. And there's one thing that I did not hear, and this is my own personal insight because I've developed an AI. I sit on our AI governance committee internally at Cincinnati, and one of our biggest insights for you all to take away, and if you want to talk further about this, please grab me tonight. It's, in my opinion, like a big inflection point on the relationship between IT and the business. Whereas historically, application development was very binary, and it either worked or it didn't. So quality assurance and testing was very static. That does not exist anymore in a generative AI world. Now the business is going to have to be more prepared to test the products that IT is delivering to them, because IT will not necessarily know if the answers that are being surfaced in the products are actually valid or not. Furthermore, now you hear terms like vibe coding and citizen development. So how are you going to prepare your organizations for people that are going to want to get Claude code over the weekend and develop an MVP, and think that this is ready for production? I mean, from my experience, it's very easy to build an MVP of a product and have it do one small single use case. But can you scale that? Do you have the right controls in place internally to actually trust that you can put that in production? So I don't have the answer. I don't know if anyone necessarily has that answer at this moment, but that's to your point of like how we keep moving forward. Those are going to be critical to the success of the industry moving forward, and figuring out how we can use this technology that's growing faster than we can even imagine available for us. So that would be something I would just throw out to recommend and consider.